Platformers. The platform genre is a unique genre which is exclusive to video games. You can find action and horror in many different medias, but in no other media do you control a character to jump from one platform to another. The genre was perhaps the king of video game genres back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, but many take them for granted these days, as the new gaming age has literally become overshadowed by dark and gritty sandbox and first-person shooter games. The platform genre was created in the early 80s. Popular platformers at the time were Space Panic, Donkey Kong, and Pitfall. Most of these games were single-screen platformers, where the gameplay happened only on one screen at a time. Donkey Kong had one specific level design, but the level got more challenging as you progressed through the game. From 1983 to 85, the gaming market made a major downfall in the US. In 1983, gaming revenues were about $3.2 billion, but fell down to $100 million by 1985, which was a gigantic decrease in sales. This was known as the American video game crash. Huge factors into making this happen was that there were too many gaming systems competing with each other. Certain systems faced hardware limitations, and there was also inflation, meaning the price for games and systems were higher than before. Many thought this was the end for the gaming industry, but one company stepped in and saved it for good. The Japanese toy company Nintendo released their first video game consoles in 1985, titled the NES, which is short for the Nintendo Entertainment System. This system, along with a launch title named Super Mario Bros., made gaming relevant again. Super Mario Bros. Popularized side-scrolling platformers and later down the line spawned other world-known classics such as Mega Man, Donkey Kong Country, and most notably Sonic the Hedgehog, which was competing with Mario at the time. Halfway into the 90s, gaming shifted from 2D and became full 3D games. Mario revolutionized gaming once again and made 3D platformers popular with Super Mario 64, released in 1996. It had 360-degree analog control, making it 3D perfection. Crash Bandicoot came out the same year and helped the PlayStation push sales, as well as 3D platformers in general. There had been made a ton of 3D platformers by the early 2000s. Most of them were also collectathons, which meant you had to go out of your way to collect different objects in order to progress through the game. Some 3D platformers changed the formula up a bit. Sly Cooper implemented stealth elements to make you play as a raccoon with thieving abilities. Ratchet & Clank focused on shooting and combat, making you play as an alien using heavy weaponry. Jak and Daxter started out as a collectathon, but in the sequels it evolved into a sandbox, bringing in an open world full of missions to complete. Even though they changed up the familiar formula of 3D platformers, they didn't stray too far away from what 3D platformers were, and they were successful because of it. Something else these games had in common was a big emphasis on voice acting and storytelling, which was something platformers lacked at the time. The Xbox 360, Wii, and PS3 were the 7th generation of video game consoles, and they were flooded with dark and gritty games, most of them being of the sandbox or first-person shooter genres. Games became closer to being photorealistic, and graphics were more important than ever. The popularity and demand for 3D platformers died down by this generation, and they were almost extinct. Needless to say, Super Mario Galaxy, a 3D platformer released in 2007, received lots of Game of the Year awards and was one of the most successful games of the generation. 2D platformers are still going strong, especially due to the genre being popular among indie game developers. 3D platformers, however, have nearly faded away from the gaming world. There are some franchises that keep the genre alive, examples of these being Super Mario, Ratchet & Clank, Sonic, and Pac-Man. Also in the more recent years, it seems that 3D platformers are getting more attention, with the releases of Tearaway, Sly Cooper, soon to come out Psychonauts 2, A Hat in Time, and Yooka-Laylee, the latter one making £2 million from its Kickstarter campaign. The gaming industry and gamers alike have a lot to thank platformers for. The genre partially saved the gaming industry in America. The genre has also helped evolve gaming by bringing innovations to the table, and the genre introduced a mechanic crucial to many modern games these days, being the ability to jump.